Today, we're diving into something pretty chilling, a chronicle of what could happen if our entire world was suddenly thrown into a new ice age. And look, this isn't some story about cavemen. Nope, this is about us, right now, facing a potential future, a new ice age, in what would be a desperate, century-long battle just to stay alive. Now, the scenario we're looking at isn't some slow, gradual cooling that takes thousands of years. We're talking about a sudden, catastrophic winter that just refuses to end. And all those complex systems we rely on every single day, well, they'd fail in a matter of weeks. Just weeks. So, what goes first? Think of it like this. The arteries of our civilization just freeze solid. Airports, seaports, they become these massive blocks of ice. All the planes and ships carrying our food, our fuel, everything we need, they're grounded, locked in place. The global supply chain doesn't just slow down, it just stops, dead in its tracks. And what happens when the trucks can't run? You know what happens. Those supermarket shelves, they're stripped bare, like almost overnight. That whole illusion we have of endless abundance, just poof, it's gone. And you can bet panic spreads way, way faster than the cold itself. Okay, so after the food comes the power. The grids fail. I mean, they're completely overloaded with everyone cranking up the heat, and they're literally breaking under the weight of all that ice. The networks that light up our entire world just go dark. And just like that, modern life is plunged back into a freezing primal darkness. So you see the pattern here? Our entire infrastructure becomes useless, almost in the blink of an eye. Our homes, which were never built for this kind of cold, they become tombs, especially for the sick and the elderly. The roads vanish under feet of snow, so there's no rescue coming. Governments, they can declare all the emergencies they want, but they are absolutely powerless against the ice. The very fabric of our society just comes apart at the seams. All right, so with society completely collapsing, all those things we thought were so important, progress, wealth, politics, they just vanish. They mean nothing. Humanity's objective becomes brutally, terrifyingly simple. Just survive until tomorrow. And the initial human cost? It is just staggering. We're talking hundreds of millions dead in the first year alone. It's a die-off on a scale that's almost impossible to wrap your head around. And not from some war or a new plague, but from the simple, relentless physics of cold and starvation. There's a quote from this chronicle that really sticks with you. Snow becomes the coffin. Think about that. The dead are so numerous, and the ground is frozen so solid that burying people becomes an impossible luxury. The snow itself just becomes the final resting place for millions and millions of people. At this point, pure animal instinct takes over. The logic is primal and simple. The north means death, so everyone, and I mean everyone, starts moving south. National borders? They just disappear. They're meaningless lines on a frozen map. And in those few pockets where there's still some warmth or some resources, a new, brutal kind of war begins. You're not fighting for land or for some ideology anymore. You're fighting for a can of food or for a spot next to a warm fire. Okay, so after all that initial chaos, the great dying, the massive migration, the survivors, the ones who made it, they start to adapt. It's not just about surviving day to day anymore. Now, it's about building a whole new way of life in a world that is permanently, completely frozen. In the world they build, its values are completely inverted from ours. I mean, everything that we think defines success and power, totally useless. A global energy grid, gone. It's all about coal, wood, and fire. A global economy, nope. It's about being able to repair things and bartering for what you need. And leadership, it's not about politics or wealth anymore. The leader is the person who actually has practical skills, the one who can hunt, or the one who knows how to build a shelter that won't collapse. And, this doesn't happen overnight. This adaptation takes generations. It takes a full 5 years just for that great wave of migration to finally end. It takes 20 years before people establish the first stable, long-term shelters, mostly underground. And then, by year 50, you have an entire new generation that's born into this world, a generation that has never, ever seen green land. For them, a warm beach is just a fairy tale. The ice, that's their normal. But out of all this, a new, incredibly resilient culture starts to form. That whole idea of rugged individualism? That's a death sentence now. The only way to live is through cooperation. Fire isn't just for warmth, it's the literal center of the community. And yeah, a lot of books probably got burned for fuel, but knowledge doesn't die, it just gets passed down through stories. Science and art, they survive too. They just become more practical, more essential, more human. So fast forward. After centuries locked in ice, the planet's cycle finally starts to turn again. The ice begins this slow, grudging retreat, and a fundamentally changed human race starts to step back out into a new world, a world they barely recognize.